Welcome to our next video on the muscles of the appendicular skeleton. We are going to do the upper arm and then the lower arm. So, again, you'll identify actions in the lecture exam. You'll identify origins and insertions, online activities. You'll identify the muscles in the lab exam. Now, here's something new. Compartments. Each limb has compartments. The arm has anterior and posterior compartments. The leg has anterior and posterior compartments. The lower leg has a bonus lateral compartment. The upper leg, the thigh, has a bonus medial compartment. These compartments have shared actions. So you'll identify what muscles are in the compartments and their shared action. So, the upper arm compartment. It is, if you're doing a cadaver dissection, you'd see that there's this deep fascia surrounding the anterior and the posterior, I know you can't see where I went down, parts of the arm. And this is separating muscle groups from each other. Now, the anterior compartment of the upper arm has the biceps brachii, the brachialis, and the coracobrachialis. Whereas the posterior compartment down here has mostly the triceps brachii. It's taking up most of the back of your arm. It has the anconeus. I swear that muscle doesn't exist, but it actually does. And that's it. Now, your rotator cuff and your deltoid actually are not in either compartment. They are outside. It ends before these muscles begin, so these muscles are not in either compartment. So here's an arm, and here's the medial view. So the triceps would be down here. There is the coracobrachialis, there's the biceps brachii, there's the brachialis. So imagine there's deep fascia that's covering this muscle, and there is deep fascia that are covering these three muscles. So they're separate from each other. Same thing for the or the lower arm. We're going to have an anterior compartment covering these muscles here. And as I rotate, we have a posterior compartment covering these muscles. Now, it's pretty logical what the compartments do. The anterior compartment is right here. The muscles are pretty much connected to there, so the only thing those muscles can do is flex. Well, the posterior compartments here, they're attached to the olecranon process. The only thing they can do is extend. So your anterior compartment are all arm flexors. That's their shared action. And the coracobrachialis immediately flexes the shoulder. Yes, that's pushing it, but it's a flexor. Whereas the posterior compartment, they are extensors. So, we've met the coracobrachialis. It is going from the coronoid process to the medial part of the humerus. Now there's two muscles. This muscle right here is the brachialis. So this orange muscle is the brachialis. And then we have, sitting on top of the brachialis, the biceps brachii. So the biceps brachii would be sitting on top like that. So both the biceps brachii and the brachialis cross the elbow joint. The brachialis right here, that's crossing and attached to the ulnar tuberosity, or the proximal ulna, whereas the biceps brachii is crossing the elbow and attached to the radial tuberosity. They're both going to be arm flexors. Now, because the biceps attached to the radius, it has an additional action there. So, this muscle right here is the biceps brachii. It gets its name because it has two heads. Let's rotate it a little bit. It has two heads. It has a long head and a short head. And this is the superficial muscle. This muscle that is underneath it. So I am rotating it. That muscle is the brachialis. So this is the biceps. That's the brachialis. That's still an anterior muscle. So from this view, biceps brachii, short head, that is the brachialis sitting underneath. And there's our coracobrachialis. So the biceps brachii gets its name because it has two heads. It has a medial short head and a lateral longer head. So you could see the two heads on the rotating skeleton. The green one is the short, the red one is the long. And their origins are different. The origin of the short head is the coracoid process. And the long head goes through, guess what? The intertubercular sulcus. And it attaches to the glenoid cavity. I swear the long head is shorter than the short head, but that's what the book says. Now, it inserts on the radial tuberosity. So the radial tuberosity is right there. So it's going to be a flexor. It is going to allow you to flex at the elbow. That's a ball and socket joint, remember? It also allows you to supinate the lower arm. That is turning your hand from the DJ, hand palms facing down position, to the carrying the bowl of soup in your palm. So that is supination. So here's the brachialis, and unfortunately we don't have the cadaver dissection. So it's really hard for me to convince you that it is deep to the biceps brachii. There is the brachialis right there. Its origin is the anterior humerus, and its insertion is the ulnar tuberosity or the proximal ulna, depending on which book you're looking at. So that is the brachialis. So on this one, you're looking at the anterior view. The brachialis is underneath the biceps brachii. So its insertion, coronoid process of the ulna, ulnar tuberosity, and it flexes the lower arm. The triceps brachii, well, the bicep had two heads. So the triceps brachii has three heads. The medial and lateral head originate on the humerus. So they're originating on the humerus. This is the lateral head. So they're only going to have actions across the elbow joint. They're attached to the olecranon process. They are going to extend the lower arm. Now, the long head actually is going to go all the way up, and it attaches to the scapula. So it's going to actually have an action at the origin, bad muscle action at the origin. It is going to adduct the arm. Again, it's one of the 75,000 adductors of the arm. And the poor deltoid's pretty much the only abductor. Okay, I'm going to teach you the secret muscle. See this little thing right here? See that little itty bitty thing? That is called the anconeus. Its insertion is the olecranon process. Its origin is the lateral epicondyle right there. And it allegedly extends the lower elbow. Let's see, we have this humongous three-headed triceps, little tiny aconeus. It's not giving you much extension. In reality, it's more stabilizing the elbow joint during pronation and supination. So it helps to stabilize the elbow joint. So this would more be a synergist than a prime mover. So the lower arm is pretty similar to the upper arm. We have an anterior compartment here. We have a posterior compartment here. The anterior compartment is mostly flexors. The posterior compartment is mostly extensors. My favorite extensor being the extensor digitorum. That extends all digits. So, the shared action of the superficial anterior compartment is still flexors. The shared action is, for the posterior compartment, is mostly extensors. The brachioradialis is special. It is a posterior muscle. It crosses over to the anterior elbow. It is a flexor, and it acts on its origin. It's a very special muscle. It breaks all the rules. So, you also get abduction and adduction. So, if these two muscles right here work together, they're going to cause a deduction because they're both going to try to contract. This one can't flex, this one can't extend, so they will pull it in. If these muscles right here are going to work together, well, this one can't flex if this one's trying to extend, so they're going to work together to adduct. So unfortunately, this is the small model. The big model did not come when I made this. So This is the anterior. So posterior, anterior. And I'm going to go to a view where I could see the palm. Here's the palm, and there's all these tendons attached to this muscle right here. It's a very long tendon. Actually, if you hold your forearm out, squeeze your palm, you might see that tendon pop out. It is in 80% of us. It is a vestigial muscle. It is for hanging on for dear life in trees. We don't live in trees last time I checked. I think my kids would probably love living in a tree house, but we don't live in trees. So this muscle flexes the palm. That is called the palmaris longus. Now, do you remember what bone is over here by the thumb? That is right here. It's attached to the carpals by the thumb. And what action is it going to be? It's an anterior muscle, so it's going to flex the carpals, so it's going to go this way. And it's on the radius side. It's a flexor on the radius side for the carpals, so it's the flexor carpi radialis. If I go on the other side of the palmaris longus, go too far, right here, it's not perfectly clear. There is going to be another muscle that is going to cause flexion on the pinky side. So this one is the palmaris longus. This one is the flexor carpi radialis. This one on the pinky side flexes those is the flexor carpi ulnaris. So here, that is the palmaris longus. So we can't see the flexor carpi ulnaris very well in that view. So we have the palmaris longus right here. Again, long tendon, very small muscle. One muscle to this side, right here, is going to be the flexor carpi radialis. Radius is on that side, attached to the carpals. One muscle on this side is the flexor carpi ulnaris, because it's on the ulnar side. So the palmaris longus is on the palm. The carpi is attached to the flexor carpi is attached to the metacarpals, and the ulnaris attaches to the pisiform and hamate bone as well. So, the anterior compartment. The main job of the flexor carpi radialis is to flex the carpals. It also assists in adduction, because again, in anatomical position, the radius side is going to be facing outwards. The palmaris longus flexes the wrist and helps you grab onto trees. And there's the flexor digitorum. That flexes the fingers. We're not going to worry about where it is. It's right there, everybody. And I just need to throw it in because we're going to talk about the extensor digitorum extending the fingers. So the flexor digitorum will flex the fingers. Now there's some other interesting muscles. We're not worrying about them too much. One interesting one, because I heard it, is the pronator teres right there. Guess what it does? It pronates. It goes from the humerus across to the coronoid process of the ulna, and it helps in pronation. The flexor digitorum flexes the fingers. The flexor pollex flexes the thumb. And we're going to talk about the bad boy now. This muscle, in bright yellow, is called the brachioradialis. It's actually that big meaty thing on your forearm right before your elbow on the radius side. Its origin is the lateral epicondyle. That's where its action is. It's breaking the rule. Its insertion is the styloid process of the radius down here. So it's not going to move that. It's going to move the elbow joint. And so it acts on the origin, and it's in the posterior compartment, but it's a flexor. So that is the brachioradialis. Now it's called the coffee drinker's muscle because if you flex to drink a cup of coffee, you're actually going to do a little bit of pronation as well. And it does that as well. So if you're drinking coffee, you are going to be using the brachioradialis. So we're going to look at the posterior compartment of the forearm in our next video. Thank you.